Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good day yesterday. I want to take a moment to introduce someone. Campus Visit Desk has sent a student over, taking a look at the university. His name is Victor. He's thinking about either majoring in political science or religious studies. Victor, where are you from? He's from Joplin. So, well, what are you thinking about doing with religious studies or political science? College professor. Well, good luck with that. But anyway, if you have any questions, I think Carly is a religious studies major, and John, you're a political science major, aren't you? Victor, feel free to talk to Carly and John about their experiences here, and of course, welcome to the class. Last time we talked about the big structure of the judicial system in Missouri. We had the wedding cake with the precious moments, bride and groom on top. Today I want to focus on one very small but very important aspect of the judicial system, and that's what we call the Missouri Plan, or how judges get to be judges in the state of Missouri. Article 5, Section 25 lays out what we call the Missouri Plan, and it is unlike what was seen before it was adopted in 1940, and it's much unlike what other states do, but we'll talk about the numbers here in just a second. In general, there are three ways to get state judges in the United States. The first is appointment, where the governor would appoint a judge and the Senate would approve, just like it's done in the United States. The second method would be election, where you would elect judges just like you elect governors and presidents and so on as Democrats and Republicans. The third system is what we call the merit plan, and that's where the Missouri Plan comes in. It was a system designed to take politics out of the process and move to a merit-based selection of judges. Now, I say in general there are three ways because there are variations on this theme. No one state does it exactly like another state. Some have combinations of election and merit and appointment, and so I want to focus on what Missouri does, and we'll talk a little bit as we go through on what the other states do. Just a little bit of a history. The Missouri Plan is the short version. It's officially known as the Missouri Nonpartisan Court Plan. It was adopted in 1940, and in one shape or another has been adopted by 34 other states. But Missouri was the first state to move to a statewide merit system of judicial selection, again, copied by 34 other states. It was adopted in 1940 largely in response to abuses from the Pendergast political machine in Kansas City. And again, as I said before, the abuses were so horrible that the people of Missouri were so horrified by what was going on in the judicial selection process that they threw out the election process that was currently being used and adopted the merit system. And we'll talk about how that happened in the initiative and referendum lecture in a couple of days. But basically the short version is the Missouri Plan in 1940 was a method proposed as a method to take politics out of the judicial selection process. So that's pretty much the history. The Missouri Plan establishes two commissions. The Appellate Judicial Commission. The first one is the Appellate Judicial Commission and the Circuit Judicial Commission. And there's going to be one little wrinkle here in just a second. But the Appellate Judicial Commission and the Circuit Judicial Commission. The Appellate Judicial Commission has 7 members. The Circuit Judicial Commission has 5 members. The 7-member Appellate Judicial Commission has 3 members appointed by the Missouri Bar Association, 3 members appointed by the governor, and the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Missouri Supreme Court Chief Justice. So we've got 1 plus 3 plus 3 equals 7. Now, it is important, the 3 members from the bar and the 3 members from the governor one of those attorneys and one of those citizens has to be from each of the 3 Court of Appeals regional districts. We talked about the Court of Appeals last time, Western in Kansas City, Eastern in St. Louis, Southern here in Springfield. One of these members of the Bar Association, one of these citizens appointed by the governor, each have to come from the region. So it's geographic representation on the commission. The way it works on the circuit judicial commissions is there are same thing, essentially five members and two from the bar, and again, two from the governor. Two from the bar, two from the governor. And one Chief Justice of the circuit. So we talked about the 45 circuits. The chief justice of each, chief judge of each of the circuit is also on the Judicial Nominating Commission. Now, the interesting thing about the Circuit Judicial Commission is there is one for each of the 45 districts or circuits. There is one Circuit Judicial Commission for each of the 45 circuit districts in the state of Missouri. Again, we talked about that last time, the big wedding cake, 45 districts. There's a Judicial Commission for each one. Now, what do? Well, the Appellate Judicial Commission is going to select names, qualified based on merit, not partisan, names to submit to the governor, we'll talk about it in a second, for the Supreme Court and the Appeals Court. The Circuit Judicial Commission does the same thing, names for circuit and associate courts. Same thing, names, qualified people. And we're going to go through the process. Well, we'll just do through the process right now. Bottom line is half from the governor, half from the Bar Association, one presiding judge. Half from the bar, half from the governor, one presiding. But instead of this being a statewide commission, this is one for each of the 45 circuits. Okay? All right, the process itself. Let's go over here. The process itself, for each vacancy, and I'm going to summarize. For each vacancy on the Supreme Court, on the Appeals Court, on the Circuit or Associate Court, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. For each vacancy, the Judicial Nominating Commission provides 3 names to the governor. Now, let's go back to 1940. 3 names who were selected because of their partisan qualifications. Flash forward, or fast forward to 1940 and today, 3 names based on merit, based on qualifications. These are 3 names, not 3 Democratic names or 3 Republican names. These aren't 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. These are 3 names of people qualified for the vacancy. And from these 3 names, step 2. The governor picks 1. Now, step 3 is the most important part, so I just want to be sure we're together on this. For each vacancy, 3 names, governor picks 1. Now, I'm going to give it an asterisk because this is the crucial thing. The troublesome word for the judicial selection process in Missouri is this one. Do you elect your judges, or are they appointed? Yes. And you get blank stares, much like I'm getting from Richard here. Yes, we have elections, but what kind of elections? This is the most important word. Elections is confusing. It's this word that you need to remember, retention elections. And it's pretty straightforward, and it's even specified in the Constitution itself. Back in Article 5, Section 25, the actual ballot language is this: shall Judge X, whatever the judge's name is, of the Y court, what court are we talking about? Appeal, Supreme Circuit. And then very simply, be retained. The nomination commission gives the governor 3. He selects 1. He or she selects 1. And then after a year, who decides? Carlos, what's been our theme? It's the power in the hands of the citizen of Missouri. And here it is your job. Shall Judge X of the Y court be retained? Carlos, you get to decide whether you're satisfied with the appointment that the governor has made, that you're satisfied with this process. And if you say yes, if Carlos says yes, we'll give him all power. If the answer is yes, then the judge would serve out the full term. And we talked about what the terms of Supreme Court and appellate court judges are last time. If the answer is yes, if the people of Missouri vote yes, Judge so-and-so shall be retained, then judge would serve out that full term. If the answer is no, and the answer no is not very frequent, but if the answer is no, then this process starts all over again. Because if Carlos decides no, then that judge shall not be retained, and it creates a new vacancy. So that's how the process itself works. With me? Okay, because we need to erase in order to make this go. I think some of this is obvious in terms of who it applies to, but I want to get into the detail. And I think the detail is going to surprise you to a certain degree. So who does this apply to? Well, you already said who it applies to. Well, maybe I did. What judges in Missouri does this process apply to? Okay, obviously it applies to the Supreme Court. Obviously it applies to the Court of Appeals. Who else did I say it applies to? I said it applies to circuit and associate. Paul, what is that? Thank you very much. It's a big but. It's a really big but, to be honest with you. The Missouri plan applies to circuit and associate judges, but only in a small number of judicial circuits. We're going to get back to the confusion here in just a second. St. Louis County, and we treat these two things as separate entities. Jackson, Clay, and Platte. Jackson, Clay, and Platte. I'm going to add one more in just a second. Okay, how many counties are there in Missouri? 114. So, circuit and associate court judges are selected by this merit process in St. Louis County, Jackson, Clay, Platte. A small number of them. We'll come back to that in just a second. Greene County in 2008 was added to this list. In 2008, the voters of Greene County were asked, shall Greene County opt into the Missouri plan? And Greene County joined the other counties as participating. But again, even with Greene County, it's a small number out of those 114. We'll get back to that point in just a second. One of the interesting provisions from Article 525, which is where all this is laid out, Article 525 lays out the Missouri plan, but it also provides an interesting section in B where Greene County got to opt into the Missouri Plan, the Constitution also allows counties to opt out of the Missouri Plan. So St. Louis County, Jackson County, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to go back to the old way. We want to elect Democrats and Republicans. They can. And you can ask that question every 4 years. And so in Greene County, we have to wait 4 years. If the people of Greene County are dissatisfied with the Missouri Plan, it can be taken back after a 4-year period of interval, and that is, again, specified in the Constitution. This applies to the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, and the Circuit and Associate in these counties. There's one other wrinkle I want to address, and that is, remember the 3rd division in the circuit courts? Carly? We talked about circuit courts, associate courts, and, go ahead and look at your notes, municipal division. Now, this little wrinkle, municipal judges in Kansas City are covered by their own mini version of the Missouri Plan. And it's an interesting wrinkle for the Kansas City municipal judges. Here's how it works. There is one presiding judge from the circuit court that is responsible for the circuit district that's responsible for Kansas City. There's a presiding judge. The presiding judge is on the commission, 2 members from the Kansas City Bar, and 2 appointees from the mayor of Kansas City. So it looks just like the Missouri Plan as it applies to the other states, but this is specifically designed by the Charter of Kansas City. We're going to talk about charter governments a little bit later, but this is a little hint of things to come. The Kansas City Charter specifies how Kansas City Municipal Division Circuit Court judges are selected. And again, it looks the same, but this is entirely under the control of the people of Kansas City. So when I say who does the Missouri Plan apply to, most of the time people are talking about Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and the Circuit and Associate in these counties. I think it's probably safe to say the Missouri Plan also applies to these Kansas City municipal judges, even though it's not quite the same. It is essentially the same process. So questions about that? Well, John, I guess there could be a trick question. The Missouri Plan applies to X, Y, Z, all the above. I would say that yes, the Kansas City municipal judges are covered by the Missouri Plan. Okay? So, for test purposes only, I will say that. Now, Paul is a little confused. Well, let's make it worse, just for Paul. Okay, I'm going to call this, let the confusion begin. If you weren't already confused. I want to make 3 points. Guess which one's the most important? All right. Most counties in the state of Missouri, most counties elect their circuit and associate division judges the old-fashioned way by partisan election, Democrats and Republicans. Most counties in Missouri elect their judges, Democrats and Republicans. Now, as we said earlier, in some counties, there are more, what was the phrase we used? There are more cows than people. So just by saying most counties elect doesn't quite do it justice. So let's do it by the numbers. Let's do it by the number of judges themselves. And I want to be sure I get this right. Approximately 75% of associate judges are elected. Approximately 75% approximately 45%, it's somewhere between 45 and 50, but I'm going to go with 45% for now. Approximately 45% of the circuit division judges are elected the old-fashioned way, Democrats or Republicans. So, draw the state of Missouri, divide it up into 45 districts. All right, we're going to exclude the Supreme Court. We're going to exclude the Court of Appeals. We're going to exclude the circuit and associate division judges in St. Louis County, Jackson, Clay, Platte, and Greene County. We're not going to count those. What's left? Well, what's left is most of the judges in Missouri. That's your star. Most judges in Missouri are not covered by the Missouri nonpartisan court plan. Most judges are not selected by that merit system that we adopted in 1940 in response to the abuses of the Pendergast machine. Most judges in Missouri, the judges that you will see, well, unless you live in Greene County, the judges that most citizens in Missouri will see on a day-to-day basis are elected as Democrats or as Republicans. And so there's a lot of confusion. Oh, the Missouri plan, does that apply to the whole state? The answer is no. Does that apply to most judges? The answer is no again. So in terms of those three selection processes that we talked about at the beginning, election, appointment, and merit, most of the judges in Missouri are covered by election. And there is considerable controversy. You'll see it in your text as to whether this process is successful, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the short version is what you need to know. How does this process work? The 5-member, 7-member commission plus the one in Kansas City, the process in terms of the steps, selecting of 3 names, appointment, retention, election, and then I think the most important part is who does this apply to, and more importantly, who it does not apply to. All right, questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. The merits and demerits of the nonpartisan court or Missouri plan have been hotly debated in recent years. Putting on my political science hat for the first and probably last time in PLS 103, I'd like to address the alleged benefits of the Missouri plan by talking about a book by Chris Bonneau and Melinda Gann Hall entitled In Defense of Judicial Elections. According to these authors, the reform community, or those in favor of the Missouri plan, are almost entirely in the legal community and accept normative accounts of judging as an apolitical activity, and that judicial elections lift the purple curtain and actually undermine judicial legitimacy. The problem is that these assumptions are contradicted by modern empirical social science research that demonstrates that an apolitical selection system is a fiction, and that judges often have significant discretion and rely on their own political preferences to make decisions regardless of how they are selected. They argue that merit systems simply move politics behind closed doors. Does the merit plan result in more qualified or better judges? Bonneau, Gann, and others answer no. Are there anecdotes about this bad judge or that bought election? Certainly, but Bonneau and Gann make it clear that the plural of anecdote is not data. And going back to a recurring theme in this class, Bonneau and Gann maintain, contrary to proponents of the merit selection system, voters are capable of choosing judges based on experience, and that voter participation is quite high in competitive judicial elections. Of course, the authors do not assert that judicial elections are unproblematic, just that they are not as politically problematic as supporters of the Missouri plan claim.